The daycare director said, "Your daughter keeps asking when her real mommy is coming to pick her up." "What do you mean, her real mommy?" I set down my purse and stared at Mrs. Patterson, feeling my stomach drop to the floor. She was standing in the doorway of Sunshine Kids Daycare holding a juice box and looking uncomfortable, like she'd rather be anywhere else right now. Behind her, I could see Sophie playing with blocks in the corner, her blonde pigtails bouncing as she stacked them higher and higher. Mrs. Patterson glanced around nervously before stepping closer, lowering her voice to barely above a whisper. "She's been saying it for weeks now. Every day when you pick her up, she asks me when her real mommy is coming. Yesterday she told me that you're just the babysitter and her real mommy has brown hair like mine." I felt the blood drain from my face as I processed what she was saying. Sophie is my daughter. I gave birth to her 3 years ago, and I've been the only mother she's ever known since her father walked out when she was 6 months old. Mrs. Patterson led me to her office and closed the door, her expression growing more serious by the second. She pulled out a folder from her desk drawer and opened it to reveal dozens of drawings that Sophie had made during art time. Every single picture showed the same thing: a stick figure labeled me, standing next to a tall figure with brown hair labeled real mommy, and a smaller figure with blonde hair labeled fake mommy. The detail in the drawings was disturbing for a 3-year-old, with the brown-haired figure always holding Sophie's hand, while the blonde figure stood far away with a frown. Mrs. Patterson pointed to the dates on each drawing, showing me that Sophie had been creating these pictures for over 2 months. She also showed me notes she'd taken during conversations with Sophie, documenting times when my daughter had described elaborate stories about her real mommy, who supposedly lived in a big house with a swimming pool and a dog named Buster. I drove home in a daze, my hands shaking on the steering wheel as I tried to make sense of what I'd just learned. When I walked through the front door, I found my mother-in-law Linda sitting on my couch reading a magazine. This was weird because I hadn't asked her to babysit and she usually called before coming over. She looked up with this guilty expression that immediately made my skin crawl, quickly shoving the magazine under a throw pillow like she was hiding something. I demanded to know what she was doing in my house and why Sophie was talking about a different mommy at daycare. Linda's face went completely white and she started stammering about how she was just visiting and didn't know anything about Sophie's daycare conversations. But when I looked closer at the pillow she was sitting on, I could see the corner of what looked like legal documents peeking out. I grabbed the papers and felt my world collapse as I read the custody petition she'd filed 3 weeks ago, claiming I was an unfit mother and requesting full guardianship of Sophie. The legal documents revealed that Linda had been systematically building a case against me for months, documenting every time I'd been 5 minutes late to pick up. Every day I'd sent Sophie to daycare with a store-bought lunch instead of homemade, and every occasion when Sophie had a minor scrape or bruise from normal toddler activities. She'd hired a private investigator who had photographed me grocery shopping after 8 p.m., claiming it proved I neglected my daughter for social activities. The most disturbing part was discovering that Linda had been visiting Sophie at daycare during my work hours, telling her elaborate stories about how she was Sophie's real grandmother and that I was just a temporary caretaker. She'd convinced my 3-year-old daughter that I wasn't her actual mother and that Linda was working to bring her real mommy back. The custody petition included testimonies from neighbors Linda had coached, daycare reports taken out of context, and even medical records she'd somehow obtained illegally. I immediately called my attorney and filed for a restraining order, but the damage to Sophie's mind had already been done. It took 8 months of family therapy and a court battle that cost me $23,000 in legal fees, but Linda's petition was ultimately dismissed when the judge realized she'd been psychologically manipulating a toddler. Sophie eventually stopped asking about her real mommy, but she still sometimes draws pictures of the brown-haired lady who used to tell her stories. Linda was ordered to pay my legal fees and received 2 years probation for child psychological abuse, plus a permanent restraining order that prohibits any contact with Sophie until she turns 18.